So brothers are starting to come in. For those on the chairs as well, if you'd like to move forward as well. As we know, we haven't got a very huge screen, and we need to make sure in this session that you're able to see what the slides are on the screen. So inshallah, if you need help moving the chairs, there's brothers available in the back to help you. Right, inshallah, so just to give a brief introduction, so we're going to be starting the next session, which many of you can read on the slide, which says the 4 preconditions to spiritual openings. So now we're going to start to learn a little bit about what are the preconditions, like many things have conditions, on what we need to do in order to achieve what we're here for, which is the spiritual openings, Ainul Yaqeen. So hopefully everyone should be really attentive and be sure to take notes, and inshallah there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. I request Ustad Tasif Zaman to come forward. He'll be teaching from 7:45 until 9 o'clock or 9:15, and then inshallah we'll be serving dinner. So this is a session just before we serve dinner, so for those who are hungry you don't have to wait too long, and inshallah I will then update you on what's to come. Bismillah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, sayyidina wa habibina wa shafi'ina wa nuru qulubina wa qurrata a'yunina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسول الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. We begin with the praise and thanks of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has gathered us. He is Al-Jami', the gatherer. So we know through this beautiful blessed name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the gatherer, that He subhanahu wa ta'ala is verily present with us in this gathering. So again, we refresh our presence, that the gatherings of dhikr, of remembrance, of learning are blessed with His presence, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our blessed ustads, they've mentioned the introduction to spiritual openings. And my job now is to explain the preconditions to that. And to put it into context, we said at the beginning that this is not a theoretical course or a theoretical retreat. However, some level of theory is important. And we have talked about some of the ayats of Quran and ahadith in relation to spiritual openings. And I wanted to begin with one of the ayahs of Quran which directly talks about ghaib and spiritual opening. And the commentary on this ayah from one of the greatest mufassirin, commentators of the Quran, really summarizes my session. So I wanted to begin with Imam Qurtubi rahimahullah ta'ala warda. So the verses of Quran, in the meaning in the English, it says that He, Allah, knows the unseen. He alone knows the unseen. And He doesn't make anyone apart from Him acquainted, or doesn't give this knowledge to anyone except the messengers that He has chosen. And then Imam Qurtubi mentions as a commentary of this verse in Surah Al-Jinn that verily the righteous Muslims, and again here I included, because we need to know the Arabic is Al-Muslim, As-Sadiq, As-Salih, the righteous, truthful Muslim. Their inner states reflect the prophetic characters, the prophetic characteristics. And through this reflection of the Prophet ﷺ, they are honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a gift of being opened, of having an extent, a level of knowledge of the unseen and interaction with the unseen. So Imam Qurtubi, rahimahullah ta'ala warda, one of the greatest scholars of our tradition in the field of tafsir and commentary of the Quran, is already telling us what is the precondition to be able to interact and be open to the unseen. It is to be a righteous reflection of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this really is the whole of my talk. But the question comes really then, how do we become such a reflection? That what are practical ways and steps that in 2018/19 we can take to become mirrors of the Holy Messenger ﷺ in the outward and the inward. So in this presentation, firstly, we have to begin with the beginning. Where did we all come from? What is our origin? So we will narrate according to the Quran and the sayings of the Blessed Messenger ﷺ, and also the knowledge of the righteous scholars and awliya Allah. Where did we come from? Why are we here? What is our whole story? Secondly, we have to make this very, very clear. Sometimes we use vague terms and words, but inshallah we will be super clear on what is our ultimate objective in life. What is the purpose of our life? Thirdly, there are preconditions to the preconditions. What do we mean by this? That before someone can be open to the spiritual world and experience an unveiling, he needs to fulfill certain criteria. We mentioned that they need to be prophetic reflection. But even before they can become a prophetic reflection, even before they can embark on this journey of purification, there are conditions. So we will also really clearly explain what are these conditions. Where do you begin from? And fourthly, we'll go through the detailed topic, which is the 4 preconditions to spiritual openings, according to the way of the Sunnah from the teachings of the Mashayikh, adapted for our day and age. So there is also our role and job to clarify things, that there shouldn't be any confusion. So again, there'll be opportunity for questions, and there will be opportunity again to engage with the ustads, to ask them questions one-to-one, particularly as you are engaging in the practical aspects of it. But there is one thing that should be made clear. Sometimes we use the same word for 2 different things. And one of the examples is that of a doctor. That we have 2 types of doctors sometimes. One is a medical doctor. That he has gone to medical school, maybe coerced by his Pakistani or Bangladeshi father to become a doctor. So he has studied the anatomy of the human body. He has studied how the body works, but also he has practiced how to fix it. And maybe once he's qualified as a doctor, he specializes in maybe how to operate, how to perform surgeries, how to cure and maybe do a bypass for someone who has heart conditions and heart problems. So let's call this Dr. Chaudhary. You have another Dr. Chaudhary who also studied, but his studying was at the PhD level, that he maybe did a master's in biology, and then he did a PhD in the theory of biology, that if there is a heart, this is what should happen to it, but he has no practical experience. The issue is that we call both of them doctors. But my question to you is, if you have a serious heart disease and you need surgery, which one do you choose? They both have the same name. But one can only teach you the theory. If he tries to operate on you, will cause more damage. He has no experience. He's only read the books. And the true doctor, the true surgeon, not only has the experience, but he has cured many before you. So similarly, the brother said that he is referred to me as Ustad, that I am Ustad, and same, they say that Ustad Abdul Rahim, Ustad Shah Alam, they are Ustad. This is not the same. This is not the same. So just like, imagine this is the light. So I am like this light. That by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some light and darkness is removed from this lamp. But the difference between me and Ustad Abdul Rahim is like the difference between this lamp and the sun. That there is no comparison between someone who not only can teach you from practice and experience, but they themselves have been steadfast for decades and years on the Sunnah and the Sharia. That this is not something light, something that, okay, I've read a few books, now I can tell people how to purify themselves. No. These are people who have not only practiced this for decades with steadfastness, but also in the company of a perfect sheikh, that they are able now to guide others. So this is the difference, that if you, like many of us, myself included, I have a serious spiritual illness. Now who will I go to? Will I go to the Dr. Chaudhary who just studied books and books, but he has no practice, no knowledge? And I mention this, why? Because all of you, myself included, are extremely blessed to be in this age and this time, to have time to spend with these people. That these ustads, they are giving up their time. We say ustad, but really they are mashayikh, they are ulama, they have the inward and outward knowledge. So my request is that you make the most of this time. But also be clear that now we use the word quite loosely, that there is a difference between this ustad and the real ustad. So this is just to clarify, because again, I am accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have to make sure there is no confusion in anyone's mind as to who the true mashayikh and the true ulama are. So our whole story, and some of us have heard parts of this many times, so they can sit with the intention that they will learn and teach others. And those of us who have not heard it, this might be a shift in the mindset, a shift in the way we think. Just like I remember the first time the teacher and the ustad, they went through this with me, it is as if my whole mindset, my whole worldview changed. For the first time, you can see with full clarity that who am I? Where have I come from? Where am I now? Why are these things happening to me? That I'm a good person, but bad things keep happening to me. Or I know good people, but bad things happen to them. And bad people, good things happen to them. There's such a confusing world. The people who are suffering, they have nothing. And people who have everything, look at the difference in their character and what they care about. What happens when we die? And what is the purpose of why was I created to begin with? So these are questions that not just Muslims, but in fact the whole of humanity, they ponder and they reflect. And the answer to these questions dictates how they live their life. And we live in a time through the advent of liberalism, secularism, where most people, they don't want to reflect on these questions. But not having an answer to these questions is an answer. So you've said, actually, there is nothing. There is no purpose. So this diagram summarizes our whole story. And what we'll do is explain the main incidents, historical incidents that took place in your life, in my life, whether we remember it or not, but also the incidents that are to come, the great historical events that have taken place, and the great events that are to come. How the past will affect us now and what we can do to prepare for the future. But really all we have is the present. That right now, right here, in this moment. So this is our whole story, the story of humanity. And it begins even before our existence. We call this the period before anything created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala existed as the period of non-existence, where only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His majesty existed. And let's say, like many of us, we recite Surah Yasin and we hear the verse, Kun fayakun. There be and it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala utters and creation is born. Multitudes of creation. We now know, and many of the mashayikh, they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Lord of the universe and the multiverse. That there aren't only current, like one universe with a few planets, but there are perhaps billions and billions and billions of universes and creation that we cannot even fathom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the master and the Lord and the creator of all of them. But if you focus on your own life, your own existence, we began to exist in the world of spirits. And there are two main incidents. There are many mentioned in the Quran, but there are two specifically that are really, really important for us to reflect and understand. So what are these incidents? The first incident is the assembly of the spirits, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathers or requests or offers something to all of the creation. And it is as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is offering a gift. In summary, this gift is the ability to disobey Him, the ability to exercise and use free will. That unlike a table, unlike a cat, unlike the sun, human beings are able to go against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything in existence functions within a system. And as we can see today, human beings are a menace to this system. How maybe the tallest person is maybe 7 or 8 feet. Such a small creature is destroying the planet. That a few pints of blood, what is a human being? But oceans, mountains, forests are destroyed. Anyways, the story there is, or the incident in the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers this amana, this trust. Ala samawati wal ard, He offers it to the heavens and the earth and everything. And everyone says no. They do not want to take this on. But man and jinn accept this gift. And in the mashayikh and ulama, they explain that what was offered was that if you accept this gift, you will attain a closeness to me that no other creation can attain. But if you misuse this gift, if you do not, if you're not consistent, if you're not careful, if you are wasteful of this gift, then a great punishment awaits you. The worst punishment awaits you. So we know, and Imam Hassan al-Basri and others narrate that the other creation, they were crying. The mountains, they were crying. For days and months, they mention, at the thought of being punished in such a severe way. But man and jinn, they accepted this ability, this moral responsibility to be able to gain a closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have the ability to disobey Him or obey Him willingly. So this is the first incident that all of us, yourself, myself, We are here now because as a species, we accepted this. And second is that all of us gave a covenant, a promise of loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the world of spirits, whether we remember or not, these two incidents took place. The first is that we were all given the freedom of choice, the freedom to either obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or disobey Him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered all of the spirits and He asked them that, am I not your Lord? Who is your Lord? Who is worthy of worship? And in the Quran it is mentioned that all of the spirits, they took witness and they said that yes, Allah, qalu bala, that yes, we bear witness that you are our Lord. So in the world of spirits, there were no distractions, there was no creation in between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when Allah asked us without much hesitation, with the guidance of the Holy Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, all of the spirits said, yes, Allah, you are our Lord. And now we are sent into this world as a test, do you really believe, if I put some obstacles, some stresses, some anxiety, some test, am I still your Lord? Or is the dunya your Lord? Are your desires your Lord now? If I add a little bit of difficulties, addictions, habits, who is your Lord, these habits? Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa azza wa jal. That we are now sent into this world one by one, and this world is but a testing ground. So really, most of us are aware of the existence of this life, but not always clear on why we are here and how we've been sent here, as a bearing witness to the covenant of loyalty that we gave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now we find ourselves in this world, and there's an interesting chart on kind of how, if you take a 60-year average life, and many of us have seen this before, that how long really is spent. How much time do you really have? And this is a reflection for myself, yourself, very quickly, that just if you take away the years of being a child, having no moral responsibility, then studying and educating yourself, even if you add up all the time that is spent doing necessary things like going to the toilet, sleeping and other things, when you add all of this together, how much really is left? That if you sleep 8 hours a day, that's 1/3 of your day, potentially 1/3 of your life. So people think, oh, I have so much time, I am only 18, 20, I will rectify, I will become a good Muslim when I am later in life. Let me enjoy life now. The question is, how much of life do you really have? And this, again, as Muslims, we reflect on this often. But then again, we fall into heedlessness, forgetfulness. So the main takeaway from this is that this dunya is a testing ground. That everything in this dunya has no value unless it leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything in this dunya will come to an end. Every relationship, maybe you value someone a lot and they mean the world to you, but wallahi, that relationship will come to an end. Whatever it is that you're pursuing, whether it's a career, education, business, that will come to an end. Whatever legacy you think you will leave behind through children, properties, they will all come to an end. And if you don't believe me, how many of us can name our great-great-grandfather? It is just maybe a memory of someone, but we have no idea where they are buried, what they are doing, most of us. So similarly, for all of us that we're pursuing this life, where we think, okay, let me study so I can get a good job. Then when you get a good job, okay, let me get a slightly better job. Or now I'm tired of this job, I want to make loads of money doing very little work. So what do I do now? Let me start a business. So this is the rat race and some of the difficulties that we find ourselves in. So now, all of us come into this world in a sequence. So your father came before you, my father came before me, but there's no sequence in leaving. Just yesterday, when I used to teach in the sixth form, one of the students messaged me, he said, can you please, they still call me sir, he said, sir, can you please pray for my brother? His 6-month-old baby died. And I don't know when the janazah is, but I will let you know. Please pray for him. He was the first child. Now, this is a very difficult situation. Can you imagine the happiness when a new couple first has a child? The firstborn. Such happiness. And then the loss and the devastation. But we come into this world and we believe that we're going to live until 60, 70, 80, 90. Whilst we can see that people, children, 6 months, 6 years, 16 years are dying. So again, this is again a reflection for us that really what is the purpose, what is the point of this world? But it's just a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created fit to test our reaction. Will He bring us closer to Him or not? So again, when we die, then we enter the world of barzakh, the intermediary world, and this can either be a very beautiful, a very pleasurable existence, or one of punishment. And again, we know this, and many of us have studied this, that the grave can either be a turf, a garden, as if a garden of Jannah, or a pit, like the pit of the hellfire. But the only reflection I want to share with you is, you can name any person, let's say Churchill, or even beyond that, Napoleon, such great leaders and emperors of the Western world. How long did they live, and how long have they been in their graves? How long did they live? 60 years, let's say 100 years. But they have been in the grave for 500, 1,000 plus years. Think about all the people that have come before us. So this is just a simple reflection for myself, and that the life of this world is actually shorter than the life of barzakh even. So how about we sacrifice some of this life and enjoy not only forever and ever in Jannah, but also our life in barzakh. That the life of barzakh itself can be 3, 4, 5, 6 times longer than this life. So what to say then of the life that is to come in Jannah forever and ever and ever? And really the mashayikh, they mentioned that what makes Jannah Jannah, or what makes any pleasure pleasurable, is the company. And in whose company will we be in Jannatul Firdaus, in Jannah, min al-nabiyyin wa siddiqeen wa shuhadahi wa salihin. And as many of the mashayikh mentioned, ma'a Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, with our beloved Messenger alayhi salatu wa sallam. So this really is the summary of our life, that we have come from the world of spirits, having taken promises, having taken covenants, and now we find ourselves in this world dazed and confused. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends messengers, He sends signs, He sends reminders, one after the other, to bring us back. We are those who have forgotten. Insan nasa'a, the one who has forgotten. Forgotten what? We forget many things, but amongst them we have forgotten the covenant that we have taken. This is why the messengers come and they remind you. When you read the Quran, again and again, the prophets of Banu Israel are telling Banu Israel, remember the covenant that you've taken with Allah. Remember the ahad, the covenant that you've taken with Allah. So again, this is really the summary of our life and our story. And I mentioned the life of Barzakh is long. The ahadiths and the sayings of the mashayikh and the awliya, they confirm that the day of judgment itself, 50,000 lifetimes, 50,000 years long. It's unimaginable. We cannot fathom such a time scale. So really, again, when you take a step back from your life, whatever we're going through, whatever difficulty, stress, anxiety, when you take a step back and you think, Ya Rab, I cannot bear this difficulty for 10 minutes, 1 day, 2 days, I'm so stressed. How will I bear the heat and the difficulty of Yawm al-Qiyamah? The day where there will be no shade. The day when the sun will be so close, people will be drowning in the sweat. So again, these are just glimpses of what is to come. And then here again is mentioned that there is the Sirat and many other events that take place. And when the soul is purified, then it enters paradise through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the last thing, or last couple of things, one is that this is a one-way journey. And as we read in the Quran, many people will say when they die and they are questioned in the day of judgment, that Allah send us back and we'll be good. Send us back. But there is no return. And lastly, our mashayikh, they mention that to enter hellfire, you really have to try extremely hard. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful to the servant that at every opportunity He removes sin. When someone is in this world, he has the opportunity to purify himself. And if he doesn't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends afflictions, difficulties, trials that can be a means of purification. Then if a person still is not purified and he dies in that state, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends some punishment in the grave to purify him. That even after that, if he's still not purified, then the person will experience difficulty in the day of standing, in this Yawm al-Qiyamah. And through that he will find some level of purification. And even then, if he's still not purified, there are stages in the Sirat and others that he can, through affliction and difficulty, he can find a relief. So really, the people who enter Jahannam, the hellfire, they really are wretched people. So we should ask ourselves that how many opportunities Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to turn back to Him. And isn't it easier to be purified now, in the moment? That some people say, oh, it's okay, I all Muslims go to heaven eventually, so let me go to hellfire for a bit, and then, wallahi, like, we cannot even fathom, how many of us can bear the heat of just the cooker of the kettle. If a boiled kettle falls in our hand, so much pain and suffering. And this is the hot boiling water of this world. What to say of the water of Jahannam? The people will have to drink and it'll boil the insides out. So these are some of the realities of the unseen that we already know. We are familiar with these at the intellectual level. But inshallah, through the help of the teachers and the Father of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe some of you will experience this in the seeing level as well through this retreat, inshallah. So before we go on to the final part, which is the 4 stages and the ultimate objective, we should take just here, don't leave this building, just take a short break, a couple of minutes, just to stretch your legs, and then so it's 16 past now, so 20 past we'll start again and we'll complete the session, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Just stay in this room, inshallah.